Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am the GM Philosopher, and today we're talking about player paranoia. Today's topic comes from a request from Banana Quark 1164. Banana Quark said, I have a question or video request. How do you deal with player paranoia? I try to develop a villain over my story that will slowly reveal himself, but players tend to accuse every potential bad guy of being the BBEG and every magic item that is somewhat unknown as cursed. Ultimately, this might be about players trusting you to not constantly screw them, which I don't do, but maybe GMs they had before did. So this is an interesting question, and I really only have two things to say about this, and let's just jump right into it. The first thing I want to say about this is that this is not necessarily a bad thing in my experience as a GM. As a GM, it's good to have your players trying to figure out what you have planned. This means that they're engaged in the story. If they were just like, yeah, whatever, then it probably means that they're not super engaged. The fact that they're interested enough to try to project some feelings of potentially they're being deceived, potentially there's something greater at work here, maybe you're trying to pull your wool over their eyes. These are signs that your players are engaged in enjoying the group, enjoying the game, enjoying your world, enjoying your story. And I don't think that this is a bad thing per se. And in fact, your theory about why they think this way could very well be true. There are a lot of GMs who it seems like take every single opportunity to wreak destruction and havoc on their groups, almost punishing them for any good thing that happens or for any time they trust anyone at all in the game. And while I don't necessarily prescribe to this at all, in fact, I would tend to say that my style of play is quite self-revealing. I keep hitting cursed items and trickery and things like that to a pretty basic minimum, mostly because I feel like true immersion really calls for more of a lifelike experience. And in real life, you're not encountering cursed items or big bad evil guys disguised as your best friends every day. Of course, there are those close friendship betrayals and there are those cursed items, but as a general rule, those things are going to occur much less frequently than players probably come to think. And to be really honest, players in my group have probably come to be a little bit less paranoid than maybe they even should be because of this. So there's no doubt that past player experiences are going to impact the game that they're playing today and their style of play moving forward. And that might have been something completely out of your control. With that being said, let's take a quick look at how philosophy can actually help us to understand this phenomenon just a little bit better. Philosophy, particularly epistemology, the study of knowledge, and existentialism can be useful lens through which to explain why D&D players might be paranoid that every item is cursed or every NPC is a villain. The epistemological perspective says that from an epistemological standpoint, players' paranoia can be seen as a reaction to the uncertainty and limited knowledge inherent in the game. In D&D, players often operate in a world where their characters have incomplete information about their surroundings, and the consequences of their actions are not always immediately clear. This uncertainty mirrors philosophical debates about skepticism and the limits of human knowledge. Just as philosophers like Descartes questioned the uncertainty of their own perceptions, D&D players might question the nature of the game world. Their paranoia is a defense mechanism, a way to mitigate the risks associated with acting on incomplete information. And if you've ever been in a situation where you have lost magic items or valuable loot or even a valuable party member or NPC because you trusted someone too much in a game, then you have a very real understanding of how, even though it is just a game, there can be a very real sense of dread and loss accompanying those types of actions. Now, there's also an existentialist perspective here. From an existentialist perspective, players' paranoia can be tied to the themes of freedom, responsibility, and the absurd. In D&D, players have a great deal of freedom in how they interact with the world, but with that freedom comes the responsibility of facing the consequences of their actions. The fear that every item might be cursed or every NPC might be a villain is an expression of anxiety over the potential negative outcomes of their decisions. This aligns with the existentialist idea that life is full of choices that can lead to unforeseen and often absurd consequences. Players, much like existentialist thinkers, may feel a deep sense of unease when faced with the unknown and the weight of their freedom, leading them to anticipate the worst in an effort to protect themselves. With all of that being said, it quickly leads to my second point, which is that a healthy dose of paranoia isn't necessarily a bad thing, and inspiring a small bit of healthy paranoia is not necessarily a bad thing for any game either. You don't want to go so far as to Keep your players so safe in their journeys that they come to believe that no harm could ever befall them in a dark, underhanded, or secretive manner. The rule of thumb here is balance and kind of using it tactfully. For example, my players probably feel a little too safe because I so often do not use tools of deception, secrecy, etc. when interacting with them, which makes it all the more effective when those things do happen. And they do. About once per quarter campaign arc, so about once every 5-ish levels, I'll throw in a big cursed item, a big deception, something to really throw them off. And this has such a massive impactive effect when I'm using the technique scarcely. So I'm able to kind of keep paranoia at a minimum and also use that lack of paranoia for impact in my games. Now, there are many different approaches to this, and every GM is gonna have a little different idea. In fact, drop me a comment. Let me know how you handle player paranoia. Is this a tool that can and should be used, or do you try to keep it to a minimum? Do you believe in really throwing all of the bad at them and keeping them paranoid, or do you believe in backing off a little bit? I'd love to hear your perspective. Also, hit that thumbs up button and the subscribe button, because you know what? I have said about everything I have to say about this one, and that's going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for coming back and watching another video. I'm here almost every day creating videos about the best game in the world, D&D. So I'll see you awesome people on the next one.